Happy Wednesday, everyone. Water Wednesday is back. So welcome to Water Wednesday. And you can see we are using a different format of Water Wednesday now. We add a new segment. It's called Water Wednesday Ask Extension. And today is the first Water Wednesday Ask Extension. I'm super excited and also super nervous. I'm not sure what kind of questions are coming to our way. So I have a guest speaker join me today. So my guest speaker is Don Rainey. He is the Water Resources Regional Specialized Agent in IFAS Extension Southwest District. I just realized I'm too nervous. I forgot even to introduce myself. So hi, everyone. My name is Yiling Zhuang. I'm the Water Resources Regional Specialized Agent in Central District. So welcome, Don.
Thank you, Yiling. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So would you just let us know, because you cover Southwest District, could you let us know which areas are included in Southwest District?
Sure. I have 11 counties in the district, mostly coastal, starting from Pasco County all the way down to Collier County. And I do have a couple of inlands out to DeSoto, Hardy County, but mostly on the coastal.
Wow. So for those who are watching our Facebook Live now, just put it in the chat box and let us know where you are watching this Facebook Live event. And for my area, I think most of you already know it's I call it Central Florida, but somehow we also covered a little bit to Punan County, St. Johns County. So, but it's mainly for Central Florida region. And this topic, this month, is rainwater harvesting. So, because we did an evaluation last month, and we asked our Water Wednesday attendees, like, what topics of your interest? And this rainwater harvesting came on the top of the list. So I would like to ask John, like, what do you think? Like, how do you define rainwater harvesting?
I look at it as a technique to where you have some form of apparatus, or it could be an impervious surface that would collect it into a catchment and then be used for instant use somewhere else, where it could be channeled to, or it could be collected and held for use at a later time.
Excuse me, I got a little bit distracted here trying to get the two screens all work together.
That's fine. Also, I do look at the use of harvesting as a method of controlling stormwater, and on the different scales too. You can look at it from home water scale, from a downspout into a rain barrel. You know, you are slowing the velocity of that water. Depending on the amount, you know, it could be very, very helpful. So I do look at it as a form of controlling runoff or stormwater runoff.
Oh, great. So it's kind of one stone, two birds. So I would like to ask you a question, because I was asked that question a lot. People like to ask me, is rainwater harvesting illegal in Florida? I felt quite surprised when I heard that question. So I asked them to expand why they had that idea. Then I got a comment. It's because the rainwater harvesting, it's kind of interfered the whole hydrological cycle. So we kind of stop the rainwater to reach to the ground and infiltrate to groundwater. So I want to know, what do you think?
Well, just to clear the air, definitely in Florida, it's legal to use it. From my understanding, and it's always somewhere. Sometimes there's exceptions, but you don't have to get a permit to install a collection device such as a rain barrel. There's also incentives to do so. So a lot of counties and municipalities are encouraging the use of harvesting rainwater. The troublesome parts, I guess, that pop up, there are about 13 states in the U.S. that have restrictions on it. Even though it may be legal to do so, there's definitely restrictions. So they're concerned about the water rights, mainly out west too, there's concerns of interruption of water rights, interruption of flow. So that's a concern. Health is another concern. So some of the health departments within states, counties, or municipalities may have permitting, depending on, to ensure that there's no health risks regarding, some of the apparatus that we use on our lands to catch the water could be cross-connected with potable water systems if we're using irrigation. So they definitely want to make sure those lines have backup preventers on them. That may be another reason why this use is under concern. And from a health risk, they don't want you drinking the water. So, and that's the other risk.
So you mentioned we don't need any permit to have a rain barrel. Then how about like a cistern, anything bigger? Do they need a permit to have a system like that? I mean, for residential level.
Yeah, I mean, not to get too far into it, but definitely, a contractor's license may be required if plumbing is required extensively. If it's extensive excavation, if they come in and have to dig and all the tank, such as big as a septic tank, I've seen them. Definitely there, you have to search for underground lines, and there's going to be some documentation going on there as well from a contractor standpoint. So definitely I would see it at a larger scale.
Then where do you see the most use of rainwater, like rainwater harvesting systems?
Right now in Florida, I mean, I could see the most use in ag. We have tailwater systems. We have seepage irrigation where the water rises up from beneath the root system upward. It's a flood type irrigation system. And the tailwater, meaning that once that water has flown over the roots, the rooted area, enough water has been saturated or at least at fill capacity or just beneath it for requirements. That water is then collected, inhaled, and then recycled and used again. So that's a harvesting technique to recoup it, recycle it, and use it again. One of the things too is keeping it underground. You're preventing excessive evaporation. So even though you have transpiration, the roots are pulling it up from the ground and using it, and that means you do have some protection until the water systems of lowering the evaporation, because you do want to keep it on site as long as you can for use.
So when you say recycle and reuse, any treatment or filtration before they reuse it?
Other than the root system will mobilize many of the nutrients that are in that water. Of course, the soil will too, to a certain extent, if it has enough biomass. Organic matter is great at retaining cations, other heavy metals possibly. But with an ag situation, I mean, you've got a controlled area. Unlike a homeowner or a large development area, you do have a lot of variables going on as far as if that water will ever get treated before it reaches its catchment.
Then how about the rainwater used in other sectors?
Other sectors would, starting with the most, I guess, widely marketed would be the homeowner sector. There's a lot of different sizes, I've seen them where they're connected to the side of the house, or they're, just blocked up on the side with a downspout within them, very, rudimentary like. And also we need to bring in the use of rain gardens, biogardens as another technique of harvesting water. It's really good, within ag systems, you could mimic some of those for your gardens, by building them to naturally slow down that velocity of water so that it goes downward and percolates. That's one form of these rain gardens are helping us not only to supply water to our plant needs, there's also replenishing the aquifer. And also, with that, passing through these root systems, these soil systems, it's cleansing the water before it gets to the aquifer. So it's definitely another thing that I'm seeing within green infrastructure type approaches within communities.
Good. If any of you are interested in rain gardens, please put in the chat box. Let us see. So if we have enough interest, I will be happy to host a special session for rain gardens or some green infrastructure techniques. Want to let everyone know, because I see some people just enjoying this live session. We don't really have a formal format. Just a Q&A. So if you have any questions, you can just leave in the chat box, and we will, when we see the questions, then we can answer your questions. And for these who are just joining us, we always like to know where you are watching this live talk, because we know with internet, you can sit anywhere and you can just you can join us from anywhere. Last time I got some attendees from Philippines and told me it was 2 in the morning. So I would like to know, 2 in the morning. I'm like, wow, that gave me a lot of pressure. Definitely. So you have any, just let us know where you are watching this live talk. We always want to know that. And just go back to rainwater harvesting. I would like to share a little bit my experience. It was a couple years ago. I went to a LEED residential building. Oh my goodness, I forgot LEED. What does it stand for? Leadership in Energy. And I'm a LEED accredited professional, and I forgot LEED. I feel so bad. I will search.
I'm sorry, Evan, I can't help you there. I actually worked in a LEED building for a number of years, never.
Then you can see 2 LEED professionals here couldn't spell out LEED. That's I will search, but
okay.
To make the long story short, I went to a LEED home. That LEED home, it's they have 3 big cisterns and collect rainwater. And what's really cool for that house, it's the rainwater is not just used for residential irrigation, because the most practices we've seen at the residential level, at least in Florida, is collect rainwater and connect to the outside, like irrigation system. And that house, it's use a rainwater harvesting system to sustain the whole house water use, including inside, like drinking, like inside consumption and outside. So I was so curious when I saw that. It was huge. I forgot 3,000 gallons in total, or 1 tank, just stack all together. Then I got so into it, it's just like, how did you get your permit? Because I know if it's outside, just like Don, you earlier mentioned, it's for public health, so they don't recommend drinking it. And that system, they do install a treatment system.
Right.
Yeah, and from something I learned, it's so interesting. It's they have a they have a treatment system. They use that for both inside and outside, but as a backup, they are still required to drill a well. So just in case, like when you don't have enough water to sustain the system, they don't want to just leave you high and dry, and you can still have a backup just well system to sustain the house. To me, it's just quite fascinating to see a house like that.
Yeah, and that just goes to show you, one being, you do have limitations, because I actually worked in a LEED building too, and we had 28,000 gallon cistern, and it collected all the rainwater that hit the that roof, and it was a pretty large building. There were pre-treatment, what we call baffles, that came off the gutter, the downspouts, and it would collect particulate and large debris, anything that may have blown through the air, and substances that would generally clog over time. So they did think ahead there. However, they did have to install a potable water refill, because believe it or not, we used that cistern for irrigation, and we used it for non-potable use in the restrooms, so flushing toilets. And a lot of times we'd have large crowds come over, and they would literally, the tank would be empty during our dry season in Florida. So yeah, as you mentioned, there has to be some augmentation or some type of supplemental assurance that it's going to work. Yes. And that brings up another thought pattern too with this, is that you do need to, be smart about it. You need to have the right plant, right place. You need to make sure that if you're using the irrigation system to distribute this water, it's very efficient and effective. You just don't want, because it's a limited supply. These systems only work when it's raining, so to speak. You couldn't turn, unless you have supplemental water going into that tank for some reason, you're not going to use these during the dry season unless you got enormous capacity. Regarding those like the tanks and cisterns type, of course, if you have a larger pond or a catchment, lake, you're okay, hopefully. The technologies are getting better at using this alternative supply as well.
Yeah, I think you just brought a really good point. So rainwater harvesting can be a water conservation strategy, but you are still, it's an alternative water supply, but again, it's a water conservation is still the bottom line. You are on rainwater system. That doesn't mean it's you can use it infinitely. It just still consider water conservation as the most cost-effective tool we can all utilize.
Yep. That's another way to think about it, definitely.
And I just searched because it bothers me when I couldn't remember what LEAD stands for. It's so I searched. It means I was partially right. I got two right. LE right. It's leadership in energy and environmental design.
That's the
yes.
Gotcha.
Oh, it's so sad. It's like, I have no one like the board is not watching that. So I'm the lead of profession in commercial building construction and design. So it's quite different from residential, because I know for some commercial buildings, it's a much, I don't know if it's the right word or not, it's much easier to install a rainwater harvesting or large-scale rainwater harvesting system in a commercial scale instead of a residential scale.
Right.
I do have a question here. It's from the audience. They always wonder, it's the water quality. So, like if we use the rainwater harvesting, then what's the water quality, like overview water quality of the water in that system?
I'm kind of thinking about this starting from the air, atmospheric deposition. If you're within an urban system or a community or near interstates, you're going to have a lot of particulate in the air. Roadways are going to stir particulate and eventually settle on your roof or impervious surface, wherever your catchment may be. You've got organic debris from plants, animals, and then that could be extenuated by them taking habitat on there, like lichens, molds, not molds, mosses, anything that over time may collect and start growing. If you're using a roof shingle type system, you may be looking at some heavy metals that may leach or break away from that shingle or become soluble within that solution, and that could affect the water quality. You will possibly have nitrogen in there as a nutrient coming from the organic particulate that's collected that will break down, or it may come from a wet deposition from the atmosphere. Those are highly variable depending on where you live, and we get a lot of times we get nitrate. This association in the atmosphere from lightning when that occurs, but we're looking at probably 4 pounds per acre in those events. But just for questioning water quality, there's going to be some variability in that. I can't tell you how much or all that stuff.
Yeah, because just like you said, it really depends on the region and what's your catchment system. If it's the roof, then what's the material of the roof? Right. But the rule of thumb, because just related question, it's how can I use that to water edibles?
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's just based on what you said, it's like you probably want to test your water first before you use your rainwater to
Yeah,
irrigate your lettuce or your other edibles.
good. Yeah, good point. Great point. Yeah, I would do that. And then there may be some technologies as simple as a active carbon filter, that you could attach inline to your system if you want to, move forward with that type of irrigation.
Mhm. Yeah, I that also occurred to me just a couple years ago when I visited that like LEED building with rainwater harvesting. I did have a chance to drink that rainwater. Of course, it's treated. I would be so nervous. You like give me a cup of rainwater. It's like, hey, drink it. I probably wouldn't do that. So they told me what kind of system they used. They had a fancy system. So the reason I call it fancy, it's kind of like standard because it's the rainwater. They have the chlorine, so you want to disinfect that. And just like Don just said, it depends on the region and the shingle. It can have heavy materials. So for the kitchen water, the drinking water, they use reverse osmosis. But yeah, it's a quite to me it's a quite fancy system. But I drank that water. That water tastes just quite different. I couldn't describe that. I don't know if flat is the right word. So I just asked. I'm like, it tastes so different. So the homeowner told me it's because it's rainwater. Rainwater doesn't have that much minerals. That's why the water tastes different. And that moment actually made me wonder because like groundwater has that much minerals. So when we use a flat water to water like just the lawn, will that affect a healthy lawn?
I don't think so. I mean, I would go back to question the use of RO, reverse osmosis treatment does remove 98% of the ions, maybe. So it's highly cleansing. So you're not going to have that mineral background taste or buffered to start with. However, in the atmosphere, falling from the atmosphere through particulate, again, depending on where you live, there may be some changes within the chemistry of that water once it gets to the catchment and then later deposited. I don't see it being an issue. A lot of your hardy plants, your ground covers, other natives, natives that's been living in that area, they should be adapted by association.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's just instead of the rainwater hit the ground or hit the plants directly, you just have the like intermediate, just hold it temporarily and then go back to the ground. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have another question here. It's just would you please give an overview of rainwater harvesting, like in general, used in state of Florida?
The overview, depending on scale, if you're looking at the residential scale, we're talking about cisterns, rain barrels. Techniques would be the use of channelization, rain guard, being the downspout gutters, coming off roofs, or it could be swells that are directing stormwater flow into a bio retention area, a rain garden that would be held and used on site. That there are various garden designs that you can do that, and that's probably the most, I guess, less input way of getting irrigation to it is just allowing gravity to pull, channelize and move to it without having much more to do. Having forested, I better stay on subject. So yeah, okay, so at that scale, and then the next scale would be for, well, let me back up. I mean, you can use, with harvesting, you can use it for a number of different things other than supplying water to plants. You could use it to wash your vehicle. You could use it to fill your pond. If you have other pond areas, aesthetic fountains, you can keep those filled. Swimming pools, that they will be filtrated and chlorined. let's see, what else would you use? You know, of course, home toilets is another use. That's going to get, you know, in the permit area, so you have to look kind of deeper to that if you want to use that. In some areas, you can use them to wash your clothes. Again, pre-filtration, you know, I would look at that. In total observation of it all, it's your capacity. It's how much catchment do you have? You know, a rain barrel, 50 gallon, 55 gallons, cisterns, you know, you could look at a residential scale, maybe from 3 to 1,000 gallon cistern or more. I kind of associate that with the size of a septic tank, you know, so, you know, you're looking at infrastructure required for that once you get at that level. Scale as far as ag systems, you know, back to Mesopotamian times, you know, they had ways of channelization to move water for cropping. The Romans moved water from the Alps via ducts to supply their drinking water. So, you know, they were using lower Piedmont type applications, you know, at the foothills. Yulin, help me, am I on track if I've already got off track? Is that?
Yes, I like how you break it down, like different scales. Then I wonder, then how about they used also in industry, in commercial perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think as mentioned earlier, you did, you know, hydroelectric dams, you know, that's definitely a large catchment at that scale. And then gravity to, you know, use the systems to create electricity, energy. Industry, a lot of industries may use this water as coolant water in their AC. So you do have some applicable use with that, depending on your climate. That's the other thing. If, you know, predictability in our hydraulics cycle has always been a driving force into how and when we collect water and how much we collect, depending on your climate. And of course, we're getting into climate change. That's kind of upsetting the scale a little bit. I mean, we have inundations of water sometimes during our so-called wet season, and sometimes we have, you know, a short wet season. And so, you know, you're right into our dry season here in Florida. And other areas too, climate and seasonality do affect that. So predictability is another thing when you're considering catchments and harvesting.
That's a really good point. And I also really like how you break it down, like really small scale. So just a really good reminder, everyone can harvest rainwater. Probably harvest sounds a really big word, but everyone can collect rainwater for simple use. Just like you said, you have a pond, that can be also your rainwater harvesting system. Can be like your 55 ring barrels, or even bigger, you have 3,000 gallons cisterns. But I do want to, because when you mentioned these numbers, it just clicked to me. An automated irrigation system, correct me if I'm wrong, I think I read the average water use for like the one irrigation cycle is about 2,000 gallons. And if I put it the right way, it's a automated irrigation system to finish one irrigation cycle for average Florida home. So about 2,000 gallons. Because when you mentioned to know your capacity, so it's like you have 3,000 gallons. To me, wow, it sounds a lot. Because the daily use, you probably in-house 50 gallons, even including flushing toilet, one person. But if you turn it on your irrigation system, you probably just drain the whole tank just for that one cycle. So I think
that goes back to right plant, right place, and how you prioritize. Generally, you want your focal points that may, you know, again, they may require more water, and that's fine. You know, you'll take care of those, and hopefully you got other plants that are more adaptable to those conditions, and they only hit very rarely once after established. And so, yeah, you did. Yeah, if you do put the numbers to it, and when we're talking nuts and bolts too, you know, be mindful of your tank elevation and applicability of just using the water, because if your tank, generally it's at 2.5 feet elevation, meaning if your tank, you're using a rain barrel type device or even a cistern, elevated 2.5 feet up is going to give you about 1 PSI pressure out the hose bill. So you're going to be standing there for a while. And if you're using a drip, definitely you want to put a pre-filter, inline filter system on, because drip is going to get clogged, and that drip may not drip, depending on the length of that hose and the residency, or the static pressure, the pressure that you can place on it by elevating that rain barrel. So the nuts and bolts of that too gets interesting as far as what forms of distribution you're going to use. I mean, could increase that flow and pressure by installing a sump pump, or a fountain pump in line to that, and that's really going to pull the water out of it faster. So you do need a strategy on where it's going to go and how much.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's yeah, that's actually, it's a really good plug for me to put it here. It's for Water Wednesday in September 15th. That will be Water Wednesday webinar. We'll dive into like what homeowners can do. One practice you and I can both do it to have a rain barrel. And the next webinar will go through all the details, like ins and outs of how to build a rain barrel and what you need to do. Like those, just like Don just mentioned about the elevation and your pressure, those tips and the tricks of a rain barrel installation. I will put a link in the chat box. So if you're interested, don't miss that one. So that one will be a little bit different. This one, we want to have this casual Q&A time. So I know some agents, they call it a virtual clinic. To me, it's too serious. It's like we are not diagnose anything. So just the two agents here are interested in rainwater harvesting and share some information with you all. And I will put the link for the next one. It's a webinar. So that webinar will be only hosted on Zoom. So we encourage you to register, and then you can attend our webinar. I will put the link in the chat box. And I had a question when you were talking, but somehow it just left me. I couldn't remember.
Well, I mean, you can look at the incentives again, depending on your incentive in your situation. If you're a homeowner, even an HOA, there are local incentives possibly offered, rebates or other conservation rebates or grants that you can purchase and then be reimbursed for the equipment that goes into that. Some of your county or municipalities may just give you the rain barrel. So you'll learn more about that too if you participate in upcoming programs. The other incentives, if you're at a larger scale, so you want to do an urban garden, or you're doing urban farming or large scale ag, your water management district, particularly here in Florida, and you might want to consult your NRCS or your soil water and conservation services as well. They are cost share method programs that would help you with tailwater catchments or other ways of harvesting water. So keep that in mind if some of you in the audience here are wanting to take that enterprise, you have a large enterprise, or you're looking for alternative means of water.
That's a good point. And I think that's a really good conclusion. I mean, it's just the ending point for today's Water Wednesday Ask Extension. So thank you so much, Don, for joining us this Water Wednesday. And